Most bankers aren't ready to help you until after their third cup of coffee. But with Central National Bank's after-hours service, you don't have to wait for the bank lobby to open to get help. You can contact us from 6 to 8:30 in the morning or from 5 to 10 in the evening, and we'll connect you to a real, live, local person who can answer questions and fix problems 7 days a week. Bank different. Bank Central. Central National Bank. Member FDIC.
This is a Rogue Media Network podcast.
Welcome back to What's Up Waco, the podcast that loves to introduce you to the people, the places, and the properties that make Waco an excellent community to live. Hey everybody, welcome back to What's Up Waco with your local real estate agent, Erica Boisvert. And today, joining me, I have Luke Snyder. How you doing today?
I'm doing very well. Thank you for asking.
Of course. Thank you for being here.
Yes, ma'am. I'm glad to hear you say your name. Sometimes I want to put a French twist on it.
You know, you could.
Boisvert.
Yes, sir. Once upon a time, way before I inherited it, it should have been said that way.
Well, then maybe I'm doing it right.
You are.
Let's bring it back.
Let's bring it. I wish. My sister-in-law used to make her students pronounce it correctly.
Right.
And then they just went to Mrs. B. So, she tried. That's funny you say that, though, because I asked Scott, I'm like, is it Schneider or Snyder? And he was like, do you see an H in there? I was like, no, but that doesn't mean so.
Yeah, we probably derived from a Schneider
right?
at some point.
Okay. So anyway, he was like, no, honey. I was like, fine then. All right. So Luke, you are the owner of Jernan. Now, tell me about the name of that. I meant to ask you that the other day when we met for lunch.
So I get this question a lot. Oftentimes it's Mr. Jernan or Luke Jernan, and that's not it.
That's not it.
So Jernan is that's my parents' names.
Okay,
Jerry and Nancy were their names. So when we started this business in 97, they were talking about business names, and I was in college, and they were like, hey, what about a name for the business? But we don't want to be Snyder Septic. And I was like, well, I don't know. I was in college doing my own thing. Never really thought I would come back to this. So
you're like, I don't care. Do what you want to do.
Yeah, whatever you want to do. So that's what they came up with.
No, I love it. Okay, I wondered if that was it. Okay.
That's it.
Which is also leading into what I like to talk about. This is a family-owned business.
It is a family-owned business.
Family-owned and worked.
Family-owned and worked, yes. So originally my dad started the business, and my mom ran the office. Mm-hmm. I worked when I would come home from college vacation, things like that. And then I moved home and went back to work for the company and been with it ever since. Mm-hmm. My dad has since retired. My mom is really on the fence. Like she's retired, but she keeps drawing a paycheck. She keeps finding something to do.
She's like, wait, what about this?
Right. She's staying in it and holding on as long as she can. But two of mine and Jennifer's sons work for us. Mm-hmm. Jennifer is really behind the scenes. We identify her as the vice president.
Okay.
She's in charge of really just making sure that everything is where it needs to be and when it needs to be there.
Well, she is the perfect person for that.
Yeah, it definitely helps. She's got her hand in a number of different cookie jars or pies, if you will. So we're just really grateful for the time that she gives us.
No, it's great. Business. She's such a detail-oriented and organized person. I can't imagine somebody doing a better job than she would do. Well, even in her limited amount of time.
She does a great job. Yeah. I try to keep her refined, keep her skills refined, because I'm the opposite of that. So it helps. We're a good pair in that regard.
That's how that works out, right? You balance each other out.
That's right.
Good deal. So we should probably get to the heart of what your business is.
So Jernan Septic and Rainwater Solutions, we are primarily a septic system install maintenance service provider. Mm-hmm. In really, McLennan County is the heart of our business, but we travel about a 5-county range surrounding McLennan County. And then we also perform rainwater collection, rainwater harvesting. We build and service rainwater systems. Okay. We also do site drainage work. So French drains, transferring water that pools and ponds and collects in a particular area and trying to move it off the property or move it to a location that's more beneficial in the property, redistribute it.
Do you only deal with the water, or like in a situation like that, would you come back in and backfill it to stop the problem from coming back?
So we can do some backfill work or some drainage work that's surface improvements, but we can also drain water from one location to another. So if you have an area in the yard where you want a rain garden or you want to do something along those lines, we can help transfer that water from an area that you don't want it to pond and pool and collect to an area that you do. If you can take water and get it into the soil and move it around and migrate it on the property, ultimately we are taking that water back to really how in nature water works. The more that you can put that water into the earth, the more that water is beneficial to your property. Over the years, we have really come up with this idea of just shedding water and removing water from a property. Get it
away
off,
from the house,
get it
away.
gone.
Yeah.
That's correct. So with this type of work, we're looking at more of pushing that water back into the ground. If we can push it back into the ground, it benefits you, it benefits your neighbors, it benefits wildlife, nature as a whole. So that's part of what we look at doing as well.
And
but
a
again,
rain garden system. Sorry. That's
no,
cool.
you're good. You're good. So primarily though, septic is our primary line of business, and that occupies the majority of our time.
Okay. That is what I really wanted to talk to you about. But then it occurred to me the other day when we sat down and met, I didn't ask about the rainwater aspect. And that's super important. And French drains, knowing that you do that is huge. I love a good French drain.
Well, they definitely work. I've got one over here on the other side of the Baylor campus that we're going to have to work with. That after the rains a couple of weeks ago, they had about 6 or 8 inches of water standing in the yard. It seems like every time they get a heavy rain, they're underwater. So yeah, they're fun. They're a little different. There's not waste involved, and it's just it allows us to think through a problem and process and solve, and that's really where that's where I get the greatest pleasure.
Really,
is solving problems.
Oh,
finding
so
a problem
cool.
and figuring out a solution to it, and then implementing that and seeing the outcome.
That's nice. I like that, and that goes into your septic business and how you approach your clients too, because I love that. You will take a look at what they've got or what they need and offer several different options, right?
Yes, ma'am.
So how does that work out? So let's say, just for people listening, just one simple example of because septic is so easy. One example of like having to put a new one in, because I know a lot of people are like, I want to build my home. I want to build my dream home. And they go buy this land that has jack on it and they don't realize, we've got to put septic in. What does that look like?
So it really looks like initially a conversation that gets to the heart of your lifestyle.
Okay.
So, the state mandates specific flow rates on a system based on the size of the home. And that's fine. That gives us a palette, if you will, to start with.
Yeah. Kind of like a bare minimum standard.
Right.
Okay.
So that bare minimum standard, if your family, if you're a retired couple and you don't entertain and you don't have a lot of family coming over, you don't host for holidays, you don't have these situations where you consume a lot of water, that minimum standard is probably sufficient.
Okay.
But if you're a young family blossoming and developing and growing, and you are very active, you entertain heavily, things like that, you may find that this minimum standard is not sufficient for your daily life.
Right.
And if it's not, then when you build a system at that flow rate, you're setting yourself up for trouble on day one. Like
expensive trouble.
Yeah, you're behind the curve before you ever got started. So we just try to take the approach that we want to understand what your lifestyle is.
Okay.
We want to know what problems are we solving for today, but what problems are we trying to solve for tomorrow? Because it's much less expensive. While it's not inexpensive,
right?
It's much less expensive today to build a system to your needs than it is to build a system to a standard that doesn't satisfy your needs. So we try to evaluate water consumption records. Everybody lives somewhere. And if we can take the data from where you're currently residing and evaluate that data, then we can make good decisions about how to move forward.
So then a billing and usage history from your current water company would be excellent for you to have at that initial
Absolutely.
consultation. Okay.
Absolutely. We would encourage everybody to be
Excuse me.
prepared with that information.
Okay. Yeah, because I'll tell you what, Septic is the one system that I would definitely not want to underbuild.
Well,
Because, whew.
it's funny, you know, a lot of people, there's nothing glamorous about that.
Fair.
There's nothing pretty, right?
No?
When you build this new home, the last thing that you're going to show off to your friends and family is the septic system.
Look at this fancy aerobic system.
Right. Look at how great a job these guys did. But I try to take that a step further and I say, you know, it's not something that you show off.
Mm-hmm.
But if it backs up in your bathtub,
Ugh.
like it's not something that you want to deal with either.
No.
If it's spraying in your yard in the middle of the afternoon and it smells like a septic system, that's not something that you want to show off either. That creates embarrassment and frustration. And so we want to engineer those issues out of the system when you move into that project versus finding those issues after the fact and trying to figure out how you solve them down the road.
Please. Because that's also like the backing up into the, you know, in your typical home that's on city sewer, snake it, right? Problem solved. It'll whoosh back in. That is not the answer.
Oh no, we don't flush it and forget it. We don't flush it and forget it when you're living with it. You know, you're cohabitating on the same piece of property with it. It's not quite that simple.
It sure doesn't let you forget it.
No, it doesn't. No, it doesn't.
And it's not forgiving.
No, it is
because
not.
those fixes, I can imagine, would be just so much more expensive than, like you said, just do it right the first time.
Do it right the first time. You know, oftentimes we offer some technology and some options in our system installs, and we will usually get the question, well, can I add that later?
Oh.
Sure, you can add it later if you desire to do so, but understand that the number that you're being quoted today, will probably double to come back and do it later.
Well, yeah.
So it's much more inexpensive to bite that problem off and stop that problem early than it is to deal with it late.
Well, and that's digging up your backyard too. I think people forget that part as well. So not only do you have to come back in, fix, and charge what you got to charge to do that, but you're not a landscaping company. So you're not going to relay sod or replant the flowers that might be nearby or anything.
Or rerun all of the irrigation system that we destroy in the process.
Yeah.
You know, it is much more devastating to do that work on the backside of the project than it is at the time of construction. You're right. There's a lot of additional costs that are going to come with coming back into an established lawn and expanding a system that you could have built appropriately on day one.
For less. In the long run. Right. Okay, good deal. So since we are kind of talking numbers, and I hate asking like you guys this question, HVAC and builders, like it's so hard to pigeonhole a price. But if we said your typical 4-person family in like a 2,000 square foot home that entertains or at least has people over for holidays.
So I would tell you, if you were to ask me what a range on that would be, I would tell you anywhere from 12 to 20,000.
Okay.
And that's going to be taking a good, better, best approach to the project.
Okay.
You know, at 12,000, we're going to build a system that's going to be, that's going to meet the standards. It's really going to exceed the standards. We believe that regulation is the foundation that we have to work off of, but we have all of the right to do better than what regulation requires of us. So we implement a lot of quality into our installs that is not required, but it's what we do because it's right for you. And so we implement quality. Jobs start at about 12,000, and then the more that you put into that, you want to upsize that system a little bit. Add a few $1,000s, we go to a little larger system. You want to implement some flow controls and mechanically control the way that we operate the system, allow you to live your life the way that you live your life. And then we mechanically handle that on the backside. You add another $5,000 or so to the system. So it starts to push you up into that 17 to 20 range when you go that way.
And then now, does that vary by county at all? Because I'm only asking because I know, like, for us to get a well dug in McLennan County, it's palatable, but in Bosque County, like, I don't even want to talk to people about the cost.
So really for us, when you start crossing county lines, it's just a matter of travel.
Okay.
So, the further we have to travel to perform a job, yes, there are some additional costs associated with that. But as far as the cost of the project, not really.
Okay.
It's going to be a matter of what are our transporters going to charge us extra. So if they've got to drive an additional 50 miles to drop a product, what are they going to charge us for that?
Okay.
And then we just have to
And just
apply
add that
job.
onto the. Okay, that's fair. Okay, good to know. Because I'll tell you what, I had a heart attack when I got a quote for a new well
I
on
believe it.
our land in Bosque. I was like, I'm sorry, what? So okay, that's good. So anywhere from 12 to 20, and then so for people who already have septic, do you have any tips or tricks or myths that you would like to bust?
Man, tips and tricks.
Or maintenance tips or
So the one thing that I would tell you if you are on a septic system and really specifically an aerobic system
Mhm.
is do not utilize liquid fabric softener in your washing machine.
Really?
Really. So liquid fabric softener,
Huh.
for me to best describe it, it acts like a coagulant
Okay.
inside of the tank. So it
Huh.
draws all of the solid material that is in suspension that you want to be processing and treating. It draws that into a cake basically,
Mhm.
and will hold it in your clarifier.
Ooh.
So the way that an aerobic system works is in your treatment plant is separated into two compartments, but they're joined at the bottom. And what happens is in your aeration compartment, you are processing, you're pushing air into that water, and everything is mixing. So your solids are in suspension.
Mm-hmm.
And then when that water migrates to the clarifier side of the system, it's very calm. And in
Okay.
that calming section, then gravity takes place in it, and those solids that are in suspension will fall back out of the water and be drawn back into the aeration compartment.
Okay.
So we're constantly keeping solids in suspension.
Okay.
What happens when you utilize liquid fabric softener in your wash is it binds all of those solids in the clarifier,
Mhm.
and they don't ever
They
settle
can't come
back.
Okay.
Right. So that it acts like an adhesive and
Ugh.
a bonding agent. So the number one thing that's really the number one thing that I tell people. People think, oh, well, you can't
Wow,
put
okay.
bleach. You can't put bleach in the laundry. Yes, but no. I mean, you can utilize some bleach. Be sparing.
Okay.
You can clean your home. You can clean the toilets. You can clean the tubs. You can do these things. Be sparing in the chemicals that you use.
Okay.
Utilize liquid fabric softener in the washing machine, and you will be pumping the system out to start it
That's
back up fresh.
interesting. So have you ever seen so then what I'm hearing, or here's how I'm understanding it. So tell me if I'm wrong. It just binds it all together. So as you keep doing laundry, it keeps getting bigger and bigger and bigger, I'd imagine. So at some point, it completely blocks that flow.
Well, it doesn't necessarily.
Can it?
I mean, that's potentially going to happen if that cake of solids gets thicker and plugs off the overflow baffle
Okay.
from the treatment plant to the pump tank. Yes, that can happen, but really, what it is it's death. That's the only way to describe it.
Oh my
It's
gosh.
death. It's
I need to call my
sewage.
mother-in-law like right now.
Yeah, it's sewage, and then it's a bunch of bacteria that has
Ugh.
died, and when you punch that, it is horrendous.
Really?
Yeah, it's rough.
It's rough.
And then so what ends up happening when you do that, if you've got all of those solids bound up in your clarifier,
Uh-huh.
that clarifier, that water migrates to the pump tank. The pump tank is then where we distribute through distribution. So if you're pushing water through the system and all of your solids are bound up in the clarifier, then you start to you increase the volume of solids that migrate to the pump tank at that point.
Mhm.
And it's just a perpetual effect. It's a
Mm-mm.
snowball effect on the performance of the system, and it will kill them.
I'm just over, this is audio, so I'm just over here shaking my head, y'all, because I'm just picturing this. My mother-in-law, I can't even tell you how, 2 people, she does laundry every day. And she loves fabric softener. So what about the fabric softener beads? Or are you just saying, just use dryer sheets and be done with it?
I would use dryer sheets. You know,
Okay.
there's a lot of new products out now that we just don't know the impact with yet. You know,
Okay.
these scented beads that you put in your laundry and this
Yeah.
type of stuff. We don't really know what the impact of that is.
Okay.
You know, we And unfortunately, we don't live in your home.
Right.
So when we encounter an issue and we get asked, well, why is it doing that? What's the problem? How do we, I oftentimes don't know the answer to the question. I'll ask you a few questions, but if you don't sit down and perform an inventory on your lifestyle, then it's going to be
That's hard to
impossible a
figure
lot
out.
of times for me to figure out what
Yeah.
it is.
Okay.
Hey, we started using this product. Well, it may be that product,
Okay.
but if you can't perform that inventory, it's a challenge for me to solve those problems sometimes.
That's fair. That's fair.
It's interesting. I'll touch on the point, you said that your mother-in-law, she does laundry every day. Well, that's really the next thing that we would encourage you to do as an owner on a system is do laundry every day.
Oh, I thought you were going to say don't do laundry
No,
every day. I was like, oh,
do
my
laundry
mother-in-law.
every day.
Okay.
We would encourage you to do a load of wash a day.
Okay.
Versus,
Just to keep stuff going? Or?
Well, to control your hydraulic load.
Okay.
So these systems are built around a hydraulic flow rate. They're built around a volume of water being introduced to the system in a 24-hour period. But in the reality, we don't operate our systems on a 24-hour time clock. We operate our systems in small loads in the morning, no use during the day typically, larger use at night or in the evening, no use overnight, and then the weekends are very erratic. Our consumption on the weekends is oftentimes increased because most everybody's home.
Right.
That's when we typically clean house, we do the lawn, we shower, and we athletics, and we got all these things going on. So the weekends tend to be very erratic and they impact the system a little more damage. They're a little more damaging to the performance of the system.
That makes sense.
So we encourage you to look at your consumption and figure out how to break your consumption out into the smallest, most manageable doses into the system that you can throughout the course of a day.
Okay.
So if you can take that laundry and do a load of wash every day, that's going to benefit the system far better than if you try to do 7 or 8 loads of wash in one day.
I'm laughing because I'm thinking of my mother-in-law who does 1 a day, but then my best friend Jen, she is that person who's like, I'm knocking it all out today. I'm doing 8, 9, 10 loads. I'm like, girl.
Well, if Jen has a septic system, we like Jen. Jen is one of those people that we want to have a conversation with. So
she probably wants to talk to you too. Actually, she and her husband did redo theirs. But yes, now I'm thinking, I'm like, ooh, this is all making sense now because she does do that, like just one day knocks it out. Okay, so no fabric softener, and try to do like a load a day, manage your water. I really like listening to you talk about this because it's interesting because I think we all just think it's a hole in the ground with one big tank and stuff just shoots through it and then sprays out or shoots through it and is treated chemically. But there's so much more involved. I mean, you talk about flow rate and hydro, whatever you just said.
Yeah.
Hydraulic
loading.
Yeah.
Yes.
Like I would never think of a septic tank needing hydraulics. Like I think hydraulics, I think cars, but that's,
Sure.
know, how I grew up.
Hydraulics is, it's flow.
Right. Okay. Yeah.
And so everything around these systems is their performance and their operation is largely dictated by their flow.
Yeah.
And how we introduce water to them, which goes back to why do we take the approach to sizing the system that we take? Because if we don't address your flow and we don't address your lifestyle, then the system is not going to work well for you.
Right.
And that creates everybody has a friend or everybody has an experience where I don't want an aerobic system. They stink. They cost a lot of money. There's all these problems associated with this particular technology.
Sure.
Everybody, if they could do it, just wants a conventional septic system. You flush the toilet and it goes in this box and we forget about it and it really doesn't impact our lives in any way, shape, or form. Unfortunately, in this region, those systems are fewer and fewer of those are being installed anymore. Those are purely dictated by soil condition.
Okay.
So we don't see those very often. We see more aerobic systems than anything.
Yeah, I don't think I've been on an inspection that hasn't been the chambers and somebody walking through. Okay, this is how. Yeah.
Right. They're going to be mostly aerobic, and that aerobic system is mechanical. If you really want to think about it, it's mechanical in nature. And every mechanical piece of equipment, including your heart, has a performance curve.
Yep.
It operates most efficiently when it operates in the sweet spot of its performance curve. So ideally, we want these systems to be treated and utilized in the sweet spot of their performance curve. Our lifestyle doesn't typically allow for that.
Okay. Yeah. No, we push it hard.
We push it hard when we push it, or
And
we
then
do
we don't
nothing
use it.
to it.
Yeah.
That's right. That's
Okay.
right.
Well, or we have our cattle trample over the electric components that stick out of the
Yeah.
ground.
So, there's a way to circumnavigate that problem.
Yes.
And, I would tell you that I think that all control panels should be mounted on fixed walls of the home versus out on top of a tank.
Neat.
I mean, it's just clean.
Makes more sense. Yeah.
Sure. You got young kids, you got a control panel sticking up on top of the tank. Neighborhood kids are coming over and playing football in your backyard.
Yep.
Has the potential to be broken.
Oh yeah.
It
could introduce liability. Like you don't even think about it, but if somebody gets hurt on your property, I mean, these are things to think about.
Absolutely.
You just never know.
There's a lot of things that, we can approach from the standpoint of savings. And I think that the question that we should ask ourselves is, what I save today, is it worth what it might cost me tomorrow?
Again, seriously, this is one system that I'd be like, nope, let's go big. Let's go big and let's make it easy, because I don't want to tramp out in the back, acreage and find out what's going on over there. No, thank you.
Yeah, nobody does.
I know. I'm just saying.
Nobody does.
That's why you get to do what you do and excel at it. Okay, so what else? What about all those things that are like septic safe? Is that just a way to sell a product?
That is the way to sell a product if you're on a septic system. So wipes are not septic safe.
Period. Okay.
We would tell you, I like a good wipe.
Dude wipes.
They really should be disposed of, as much as I hate to say this, in a trash can.
Trash receptacle, sure.
Even if you live on the city sewer.
Okay.
Like, you don't realize the impact that these wipes have on the city sewer system. Your sewer in your street, at some point, it's going to drain to a lift station that's got pumps in it, and then that's going to pump it somewhere else where it's going to get to another a lift station, and it's just this migration of pumps and chambers all the way to the sewer treatment plant. And then at the sewer treatment plant, you've got these digesters that are constantly working, and at every stage along the way, we risk contributing to the failure of mechanical components by introducing these products to the system, be it city sewer or septic system. So,
well, shoot, even coming off of your house, I mean, that pipe's not that big, people.
Right.
It's what, 3 inches?
3 to 4 inches.
3 to 4 inches coming off the house for waste.
And generally, the pipe will carry it. It's not typically the pipe that's the problem.
I'm thinking of like the roots coming in and getting caught on that.
If you've got a root issue, that can certainly impact that. If you've got burrs in your pipe that will hang something, that can certainly get caught there. But more than anything, what happens is they get into the tank and they create a mass of solids that never digest, that never break down. And the only way to remove them is to come in with a vacuum truck and empty the tank. And we don't. It can be.
Okay.
And we don't want those in our truck.
I'd like to help you out, but
I mean, we'll pump them and we'll move them, but oftentimes wipes are going to contribute to cost when it comes to pumping. They're going to impact the cost of pumping.
They make it harder.
They make it much harder.
Okay.
And a lot of times, if they're really bad, we'll have to take a trash bag and a rake and get as many of those out of the system as we can and put them in a trash bag, and then we leave that for you to dispose of in your own trash. We're not taking that with us. We don't have any room for that on our truck.
That's fair. That's fair.
I like a good wipe. And I'm all for everybody that wants to use them. just it's probably not the place to dispose of them unless
Okay.
you want to pay for it and deal with them later.
No. Okay. So then even if something's labeled as septic safe, it's not. Like
Not
those are not.
always.
What about toilet paper?
So toilet paper, no lotions, no quilts.
Really?
Yeah, I don't know what
quilts.
in the world they do in quilted toilet paper that makes it not break down, but it just doesn't break down. We recommend a pretty basic 2-ply paper is to your advantage. The more plies you put down there, the more solid you're applying to the system. I'm not a fan of a 1-ply paper. I think, if you're using 1-ply paper, you're going to use 2 or 3 times as much of it.
I don't think anybody's a fan.
I would encourage you, not necessarily go to 1-ply, but a pretty basic 2-ply paper is really to your advantage. Lotions,
no quilt, no lotion, no scent.
no lotions. Lotions are they're going to contribute to the fats, oils, and greases.
That's like the fabric softener again, right?
Right. The paper's not really going to break down, and for some reason, quilted paper doesn't either.
That's so weird.
It is. I don't know what that process is that causes that, but it impacts the ability of that paper to break down.
Okay. Well, that's good to know because I always thought that was bull. I thought, oh my gosh, toilet paper's toilet paper. It all breaks down at some point, but it doesn't.
Not all of it.
Okay, good to know. Anything? What else do people? Because I have a lot of people who just haven't been on septic. Like they're moving from city of Waco out to more rural areas, and they're like, how do I manage this?
So that's very common. We've got so many people moving into this county now that are, have been on a city sewer all their life, and it's flush it and forget it. And so, we've got a list that we walk through our clients with after an install.
Cool. Okay.
So post installation, we go back, we sit down with you. Hey, don't do this, don't do this, don't do this. We recommend that you consume your water in this fashion, so on and so forth. And a lot of this is conversation that we would have had on the front side of the job when it comes to loading and the volume of water that we consume, but more of that introduction of papers and waste and chemicals and things like that we tend to have on the backside of the project.
Okay.
And so, when you mop, use a bucket, dump the bucket outdoors. Don't mop out of your sink or out of your bathtub.
Oh, okay.
Because that's just introducing chemicals to the system that are unnecessary. Don't use toilet pucks. So.
Oh yeah, I've always heard don't use those anyway.
That bleach it's just a tablet of bleach. Every time you flush the toilet, you're flushing, a couple gallons worth of bleach down the drain.
But it's a pretty blue.
It is, yeah. Or even the clear ones.
Yeah. Don't do it.
Just recommend that you don't do that.
Okay.
Loading, if you were to ask me what is the number one problem that systems seem to experience, I would tell you it comes from what we load to them. It comes from the way that we consume water.
So the usage.
The usage is typically the biggest issue.
Go big.
Yeah, certainly.
A little more than adequate.
My recommendation would be that you really want a system that's going to operate at about 60% of its capabilities. And there are ways to make that happen. And it all starts with your understanding as the consumer at how the system operates, what is your lifestyle, and what can we do to make sure that you're making your best purchase decision when you pull the trigger on one of these things.
Yeah, I know. And it probably sounds like to people who are listening, are like, oh, you just want us to buy the bigger system. No. I want you to avoid the really expensive fixes that come later because we've got some stories.
Oh, I'm
sure you have a ton.
There are plenty of stories about that. Look, it doesn't matter to me. I tell people all the time.
You're like, I'm working either way.
It doesn't matter to me. I don't care what you choose.
Yeah.
But it has no bearing on my life whether you choose this system or you choose that system. It has all the bearing on your life. But I feel like as a quote unquote professional, it's my responsibility to educate you at how these things function and what they do and how that marries to what you're going to do.
Yeah.
I can come in, I can install a basic system for anybody.
Sure.
I can meet regulation all day long.
Just call it a day. Boom, check.
Sure. And move to the next one. But I care more about you as the consumer So I try to focus on your needs.
Well, and no quote unquote unprofessional. You are a professional. This is what you do. This is your business. It's your livelihood, and you do approach it in a very professional way.
Well, I appreciate that. That's the goal, and that's the objective is
Well, good.
to
You met.
is to treat you and your home as if it were my home.
Mm-hmm.
You know, as a consumer myself, I don't ever want to be fed, you know, this is what I do. This is what you're going to get from me. I want to be given an opportunity to make choices. I want to be given an opportunity to truly understand what it is that I'm fixing to purchase. And if I decide that I'm going to choose the bare minimum that you can give me, then I get to carry the results of that decision.
Sure.
And hopefully I don't have any problems with the choices that I've made, you know? But if I make that decision and I have problems, I also don't have you to place any blame on, because you came to me with some information and I chose to do what I chose to do.
Right.
And so I just tell people it's not going to hurt my feelings if you choose A, B, or C.
Mm-hmm.
I want to do your work.
Right.
I want to work for you, and I want to establish a relationship with you. And I think that the best way for me to establish that relationship is to start with treating you the way that I desire to be treated.
Golden rule.
And so
wins every time.
That's the way that we approach it, and it seems to work.
Yeah, no, good deal. And then just thinking, do you guys also have maintenance programs set up?
We do.
Okay.
We do. So we offer aerobic systems require a maintenance contract at the county level.
Okay.
For the life of the system. The state level is for 2 years. The state requires it for 2 years. And for whatever reason, they don't require it beyond the 2 years, which makes little to no sense to me. If our objective is to build and operate and maintain the public health and the quality of the environment and things like that, it seems as though those maintenance programs would have to continue.
Mm-hmm.
Most counties, however, are requiring that the maintenance contracts continue beyond the 2 year timeline. So we do offer maintenance on those systems. Currently, what we offer are really just a standard maintenance program. We come out 3 times a year. We inspect the different compartments of the system. We pull samples for solids to evaluate, you know, what do these compartments look like, and get a snapshot of that. Clean and replace air filters on compressors as necessary. Test all the components, make sure that they're functioning. We are looking to, hopefully in 2024, be able to shift this more into a good, better, best scenario again, where there's some warranty, if you will.
Like with your maintenance contracts?
Correct. That extends into that service program.
Sure.
So, you know, at certain levels, you gain more benefit to that program, be it deeper discounts, you know, warranties that extend beyond manufacturer's warranties, you know, those types of things. We are looking to implement a program that's a little bit more broad than just, hey, we're trying to meet the regulatory standard plus a little, you know, we just want you to have the opportunity to make those choices. It's a lot like,
I do like that.
It's a lot like extended warranty purchase on your vehicle.
Sure.
Or, you know, if you've ever had a HVAC system service program where, you know, they present these options to you, it's very similar and in line to that. And that's what we're looking to establish.
Well, and I like that because if somebody does do more than just regular maintenance, then the system is probably performing at its best and most likely won't need the repairs that a system without adequate maintenance would require. Right?
That is certainly the thought process behind it.
So it would cut down. So extending that warranty makes sense because you already know. I mean, from a business standpoint, it makes sense. You already know you're taking care of the system.
Right.
So probably the likelihood of that person needing a big repair is less.
Right. Greatly reduced.
Yeah. Okay. And then one other thing I wanted to touch on, because I don't think people realize this. When you're putting in a septic system, this is one of the systems that it doesn't matter where you are digging in the ground, you need a permit.
Oh.
Like Uncle Joe Blow can't come drop this in the ground for you.
I am so glad you asked that question. Yes.
It's important.
Yes. You absolutely must have a permit to install a septic system anywhere.
No matter where.
With very, very little room outside of that in the state of Texas.
Okay.
So many, like McLennan County, Bosque County, Bell County, Coryell Falls, Limestone, the counties that we work in
Mm-hmm.
all require a permit
Mm-hmm.
for every project. Now, when you get into a county or a region that is governed by the state, they don't have a local agency.
Mm-hmm.
The state has what is called a 10-acre rule.
Okay.
Okay, the 10-acre rule allows you to install a system without a permit.
Ooh.
It does not allow you to install whatever system you desire to install.
Okay.
It allows you to install a system inside the bounds of regulation without a permit.
Okay.
So if your property demands or won't, let me go the other way, your property won't allow for a conventional system,
Okay.
just because you're on 25 acres in that particular region doesn't mean you get to install a conventional system just because you want to.
Okay.
And anybody
Good.
that is a licensed professional that would do that for you is in violation of law and regulation when they do so.
And putting you at risk.
And putting you at risk because you're going to ultimately be the one that carries the financial burden
Yep.
when the problems arise.
Okay.
Furthermore, anytime you install a septic system, you have a septic system serviced and worked on, that person that you're doing business with must be licensed with the state of Texas.
Yes.
And it is 100% to your advantage to make sure that person can provide you a copy of their license.
Yes.
I would encourage you to always ask that question.
Mhm.
If you have any question that the contractor you're speaking to is not a licensed professional, ask him for a copy of his license, or her, as it may be. There's a horror story, and there's many of them across the state, but there's one down in Bruceville, Eddy, where these folks have a super small piece of property.
Mhm.
They hired somebody came down out of Dallas, put in a field-built aerobic system, if you will, set 3 different tanks and set an air compressor and a control panel, all products. The tanks, I think they precast themselves. All the components they purchased online. They built a system. It didn't even have enough compartmental space to be an aerobic system if it tried to be an aerobic system. So these people spent $10,000 or $12,000 and put this thing in the ground, and
Right.
McLennan County became aware of it and has gone back to them, and they're now having to replace that system. And unfortunately, the property that they're on is a super small piece of property. It's going to require drip irrigation as a method of distribution. It's rocky, so you can't just put that in this rocky soil. It's going to require some element of soil replacement to accomplish that distribution. And when I priced the job, it was about a $30,000 project.
Right. Yeah.
That they'd already spent $10,000 or $12,000 on and had been taken advantage of. And it's just.
And they're not going to find that guy from Dallas. He's not going to
No,
be
he's not coming back.
No,
No, he's got your money and
Like,
he's
bye.
gone. And all you got to do is call and leave one message, and he's going to block your phone number, and you're
Ugh.
not going to hear from him again.
Ever. Nope.
Absolutely. Anybody that is working on your system or looking to install a system for you, you need to ask for a license number.
Okay. That's good. That is good advice. No, that's great. I just really wanted to touch on the permit thing too, because I know people will be like, oh, I can put in electric wires, and technically.
And technically,
You can.
as the homeowner, if you want to install your own system, you can.
Mm-hmm.
You can go through that process.
You need to pull a permit.
You have to pull a permit, and you cannot financially compensate anyone to perform any part of that installation.
Huh.
The only person that can be financially compensated for any part of that work in the state of Texas is a licensed professional.
Okay.
And once you get involved in paying somebody to perform those services, you're no longer installing it yourself.
Yeah. And
So
now you've hired somebody and you got to do all the things.
That's correct.
Okay, that makes sense. That's so crazy. But at the same time, what you're dealing with, and in the ground and in the soil, it's environmental impact. There's a lot of things that people don't, I think through. It's not just dropping a cement tank in the ground and
The
flush and forget,
environment,
like
the
you said.
environmental impact and the impact of public health.
Mm-hmm.
You know, I don't want the government in my business.
No.
Any more than I think most of us want the government in our
Right.
business. And I'm not a big fan of imposing regulation on people that is unjust and undue. Like that's not my thing.
Yeah.
But at the same time,
This is pretty fair.
yeah,
Yeah.
I mean, we have speed limits for a reason.
Right.
You know, there's stop signs and traffic signals for a reason. And there's a reason why we do this. You know,
Yep.
we don't want to, our water supply is so precious. And if we are just dumping raw waste into our fresh water supply, and we're not only risking our neighbor's health, we're risking our own health.
Oh yeah.
And we are all part of a larger organism when it comes to that. And I think that this is just one of those things where, and we really got to look out. We got to look out for the community as a whole when it comes to this. And so I think it's in our best interest to take an approach that's a little more proactive to handling our wastewater treatment.
Absolutely.
You know, we don't, you move to the country for a reason, right?
Yeah.
Like you're trying to get away from some of these things and you don't want the taxes and you don't want this and you don't want that. But, if you don't handle the septic system issues right and they decide that, well, we're going to figure out a way to put in a centralized sewer system. Well, now you're paying those taxes and now you're paying for those services that you were trying to get away from. So if we do this right on the front side, maybe we can hinder some of that grab that the government likes to employ.
Absolutely. So again, it just comes down to do it right the first time.
That's right.
Just do it right the first time. Okay. Did we miss anything about what y'all do or?
I don't think we really did. I think
Okay.
I think that's a good high level overview of what goes on with us and what goes on in that market. And
Perfect.
hopefully there's some people with some questions. And
I think so. And if they do have questions or if they'd like to talk to you about a system refresh or a system install, what's the best way to get in touch with you guys?
So you can reach us at our office. It's 254-848-4848 or
Wow, that's real easy.
It's super easy. Or we can be reached via email, info@jernan.com and jernan.com for website, and all of our contact information is there. We're on social media and all of those things, and big refresh on all of that coming. So in a week or so, we ought to have,
Is it about done?
Oh yeah, it's about
That's
done.
exciting.
We should launch first of next week. So
Cool.
yeah, so everything will be fresh and new, and a lot of contact forms and things like that on the website. So,
Good deal.
Yeah, we're looking forward to it.
And it's JEARNAN.
Close.
No.
It's JER.
What did I say? What did I say?
You threw an A in there.
J-E.
Yeah.
What did I? J-E.
Yeah,
I'm
Jernan.
looking at his shirt, you guys, and I already know how to spell it. JERNAN.
That's right.
Gosh,
.com.
bless. I might ask them
.com.
to edit that out. I probably won't. I let myself look stupid sometimes.
Well, that's
it's okay.
all right. That's all
It's
right.
real
We all
life.
that's right. We all make a little mistake here and there.
I threw an A in there.
You did.
I'm looking at his shirt. Okay. Well, Luke, thank you so much for coming out.
Absolutely. Thank you. I appreciate it.
Everybody, that is Jernan Rainwater and Septic System Solutions. Please check them out online. Reach out to Luke with any questions that you have. You will get them answered. And as always, if you have any real estate questions or want to learn more about Waco, follow at Boisvert Realty on Instagram or Facebook. And that is What's Up Waco.
Awesome. Have a great day.
You too. Thank you.
Yes, ma'am.
Do you have a topic you want to talk about? Do you have questions about Waco, the real estate market, how to sell your house, what to look for when you're buying a home? Send me an email, ericasellstexas@gmail.com. Shoot me a text, 254-447-0180. Happy to chat about it. Find me anywhere you listen to your podcasts or at roguemedianetwork.com.
This has been a Rogue Media Network production.